Hello, everyone. Welcome to Narratives and Nonsense. We are friends talking about random and recent stories, newsworthy or otherwise. I am Jordan. You can also call me Gillidan. And this here,
Hey, I'm Connor. How you doing? It's the big five strings.
I just keep waiting for like the and no fucking ring because every time that I try to start saying it, you keep
No fucking
ah!
rings.
There it is.
I got him that time.
Poor headphone people, myself included. Uh, what is there to talk about? We have all sorts of stuff. First things first, we'll touch on what we've been doing. Connor. Halo Infinite came out, and I've only ever played the first Halo, really. And that's still the case, but I am replaying it with my roommate Marcus, so that's on Sundays. That's fun. I forgot how different like old school shooters were because they're very much more of the like military simulator type of thing compared to what we have now. Um, it was a weird throwback. Very enjoyable. So I've been going through that, and oh my gosh, the respawn points are very convenient because Lord knows I did not do a no death run on normal mode, much less anything harder than that. So that's been fun. What have you been up to?
As always, putting doors up where there weren't any before. Just really going for it. Tried to go play pool. That didn't work out too well, so I just sat and drank at the bar instead.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was basically my week in a nutshell right there.
Because there weren't enough people for pool, or
No, apparently there's Alberta regulations against playing pool. But of course, you could still gamble your life savings away on a VLT, or you can also go play their arcade machines. That's all cool. So we had a time of it anyways.
at least you had fun. You
I,
can't play pool. I wonder if it's
yeah,
because people are like too close to each other around the pool
it's
table
pretty.
itself.
I mean, I guess that's probably, and thinking about it, I guess like pool halls are probably where that really came from. But like
Hmm,
in our situation, like we could very easily have maintained space, but
that's
I'm
fair.
not one to cause a scene.
Like if it was a more popular area, that might be a little bit more
Thinking about it, we
troublesome.
do have a pool hall up in Red Deer. That'd be a little trickier,
Okay, that makes a little
depending
bit
on
more
its
sense.
occupancy.
I wonder if it's one of those things where it's one of those things where they either you don't have it or if it's like a full haul, like that's what it is for. They have to do one of the like every other table type things. Still interesting. um I guess on that note, you had mentioned earlier this last week there were some new mandates that were proposed that people were very against.
Yeah, they finally during like working through like the pandemic and everything, you didn't actually have to be vaccinated to run like to drive a semi truck up and across the border into Canada. Ottawa came down with the big hammer on that and said, "No, you do." And naturally, the truckers reacted really well to that. It went great, really. They drove down to Ottawa. I heard they had a picnic.
Everyone got stabbed.
Sounds like it was a good time, man. Like honestly, like I gotta say, like no, yeah. There's a very large protest, and Ottawa is just flooded with semi trucks right now at the moment.
Jeez. That yeah, okay.
However, they have sworn no violence, so
Hey,
I at
that's
least give them that. They got good on
yeah.
them.
Honestly, I feel like it's one of those things that most of the time truckers actually have a pretty good reputation. I could be wrong, but I feel like that's usually the vibe. It's kind of like biker gangs. It's either they're absolute like gang monsters or they're literally the
But
most
about
wholesome
like
people ever.
two things.
Yeah, that's true. Like it's one of those things where it's like some kid is like sick and they're raising funds and then suddenly a biker gang shows up out of nowhere and they're awesome. But the moment like somebody like takes away their ice cream, that dude's house is just gonna get
Yeah.
bombarded with ice cream like thrown halfway across the
You
field
arrest
type
one of our
thing.
guys, take
Yeah.
our guns. Not gonna
Yeah.
be good, homie.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
rather, and I want to point out I am double vax waiting to get boosted.
Same.
So like I'm all for it, but I, it's tricky because it's like, man, you really pissed off the wrong group of people. Because the problem is like we're having shortage issues.
And supply chain
Uh,
nonsense.
yeah, and British Columbia got absolutely mauled by this crazy. Apparently, it's called a Pineapple Express. It was a couple months ago.
Okay.
So they've been having huge issues. So this has made it even better for them.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. It's kind of like, man, it is kind of the catch-22 on that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get what they're trying to do, and I'm like down for the mandate, but it's like, yeah, I don't really know what they expected to happen.
Yeah. It's one of those things where
What do
I
you
just
do?
kind of want everybody to Plague Inc. or I think the web browser version is just called Pandemic. I don't know if you'll actually find it anymore. I think COVID has kind of taken over those web search results, but there's an old Flash game where it's literally like go to try to make a disease and spread across the entire world and kill everybody. I want everybody to play that because it's all a numbers game. That's all it really is. Some people on like TikTok they've been looking at like the last 60-day maps for different states here in the U.S. So like Colorado was one of them, Tennessee. People keep saying to try to put up like Texas, Nebraska, stuff like that, and you just watch as the map goes from like, oh, it's like a dulcet gray yellow kind of thing, and it just slowly becomes red and then redder and then even deeper red and then suddenly black as all of a sudden it's like each tiny segment within that one state starts to just get more and more cases over the weeks. It's just it literally plays out exactly like how that game looks. Just visually it's kind of terrifying, but it
It's
says
pretty
a lot.
freaky.
I guess on the subject of COVID things, I know Spotify, this is something else that's it's been ongoing, but this last week I had an interesting turn where uh so with Spotify, it's kind of under fire for spreading misinformation, and one of the main people that uh, is kind of taking the brunt of the controversy is Joe Rogan, who Spotify spent so much money to try to get. And them, YouTube, I don't know how many other platforms have actually gone through to like censor or take down some of Joe Rogan's stuff because of specifically the fact that it's misinformation, or it does one of those things where it's like it undermines what the point of whatever something is said about, say, vaccinations, or um I mean basically whether it's the sciences or the news coming out about COVID stuff. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it'll be done by April. It's like that where um it's been really heavily criticized for spreading misinformation, with Joe Rogan being the biggest name on that. um and while Joe Rogan is like under threat of being removed from the platform, we had somebody else, Neil Young, who is threatening to remove all of his music from the platform when uh and the reason Neil Young is saying this is because he thinks that Spotify is spreading a lot of this misinformation. So it's interesting to see both sides of the coin are evacuating from Spotify. Do I think it'll make much of a difference? No, sadly, no. It's a little bit harder to say like what the next steps
It's
will
Joe
be.
Rogan. Like some other
Yeah,
site will host him.
yeah. Well, that's the
He'll
thing.
probably go on to
Spotify.
a more site that maybe agrees with him more and has some other beliefs that isn't too worried about.
Well, I don't know if that'll be the
Again, it's
case or
tough.
not because Spotify paid him a ton of money, so I'm sure there's some exclusivity there. So
Well,
it's
yeah, and
like,
Spotify might just eat this, and he might just sit at home until whatever he's locked into is up,
yeah. Well, at
or
that
they may just
point,
keep going with it.
yeah. I don't know. I think it's something where it's interesting because I think Joe Rogan generally tries to do an either side type of ordeal. Like he's very blunt force with topics. That's my view of it. Um, so I don't know what or where he would go, because what people have been like smoking marijuana on a show, so I don't think that like like something that's like specifically like right focus conservative Trump supporter type thing would be accepting of him. But then again, I would say the flip side of that, everyone would argue, is like Spotify and YouTube, and he's already under fire there. So now what? Do you just host it yourself? That's expensive.
Yeah, and Joe Rogan, he's really struggling right now, like
Yeah, that's true. That's a good.
financially. I don't know how he would be able to
Who knows?
get that done, really. Just doomed career, honestly.
All I know is no one cares about Neil Young. And when I say that, I mean like some people care, but I don't think anybody in our generation is like, oh no, Neil Young's going off of Spotify, even though we're like supportive of that cause. It's just one of those things where it's
like
like,
maybe
cool,
somebody loses like Heart of Gold off of a
yeah.
classic rock playlist.
Like everyone's like, oh, well, at least
I
you're
like Neil
standing up
Young,
to
by
the
the way, but
man. Yeah, no, exactly. It's a
well, and
weird thought.
honestly, he's not doing it for clout. That's just how he's always like this.
Yeah.
That's why
So
they literally talk. That's why they literally call him out in whatever that one Leonard Skinner song is.
sure. Yeah.
Like this has been him forever.
So that's a light summary of some things that happened this past week. There's of course there's more stuff, but we're not a news channel. We just want to touch on it. Um, some other things that are fun. So because this will be this coming Monday, we record these on Saturdays and release on Monday for all you fine folks at home. This coming Monday, just talking about the fun holidays that are coming up. There are a ton of them. My God, it was like in the dozens. Um, the ones that I really liked were there was National Backwards Day, which I think is just funny. Literally, the whole premise is try doing something back while you're like walking backwards to, I guess, appreciate going forwards. Um,
Within reason.
within reason. Yeah, don't drive backwards down the hallway, like down the highway. Like that would be bad.
Or the hallway.
Or
Either
the
way.
hallway. Yeah.
No
If you're
driving
driving
backwards
through your
down ways.
hallways, I'm concerned. So that was one
Or you have
thing.
a smart car.
Yeah. The other one was National Bubble Wrap Day. I don't know why we need a day. I feel like I can always appreciate bubble wrap. I will
But
say,
we're
oh,
slowly destroying the ozone layer every time we do.
that's true.
It's really
It is a recycled
yet
layer.
another.
That helps.
It's true. But that's the thing. If it's the gas inside, if it gets popped, obviously you can just reuse it.
Yeah. Well, another
But yeah.
thing, I think we've gotten better with bubble wrap because now it's not like the small fun ones where it's just like now it's the like the big, oh yeah, here's just one that's the size of like a grapefruit. Pa pa pa. That's the bubble wrap of the modern era, I feel like. I don't think I've seen the old school little bubbles, and I don't know. I mean, I don't order a lot of stuff on Amazon or the like online shopping, but I want to say the last time that I got something with proper bubble wrap might be like halfway into last year. That's the last thing I can think of. Everything else has always been those big airbags. Um, so anyway, we need to appreciate bubble wrap. Yeah, I would call those big airbags bubble wrap as well. Just the the pretend like you're shooting a gun in the middle of a store bubble wrap. So that was another one.
Also not advisable.
Not advisable. No. Another one was Gorilla Suit Day. I don't know why this exists, but that's awesome.
I
Um,
mean, I always like chasing a gorilla around at Casa Bonita.
I wanted to imagine Gorilla Suit Day was made in honor of Harambe, but knowing how holidays work, I don't think that's actually the case. But it is a really fun thought experiment. So that was another one. And then one that is like a little bit more on the like serious note is Naaru Independence Day. So the Republic of Naaru is a small island a little bit outside of Australia, so kind of near where the Marshall Islands are, approaching like Guam and the like. Apparently, it declared independence in like the 1960s, so happy Independence Day to them. And my favorite, this is the one that I like. This is my holiday. This is designed for Jordan. National Hot Chocolate Day. Oh my gosh. I'm like
Jordan is
I
hot
can't
chocolate
I
fiend.
can't appreciate hot chocolate enough. It is my favorite. If it says anything, here, let me because I just have here's a jar of hot chocolate. This was one of two jars that my grandma, bless her, for Christmas made like cocoa powder. And so this is one of the two jars. I've had this for like I opened this up maybe a week and a half ago and it's almost gone. This thing is the size of my head. I love hot chocolate. So if anyone wants to give me hot chocolate, feel free to send us an email. Like, I will happily accept your cocoa. Um, so those are the holidays. Um, Outside of that, we had two things that we wanted to talk about. Usually we try to keep it to one thing or another, but we wanted to
Or
dive
we
into
just
both.
do whatever we want.
Yeah, that's also true. We wanted to dive into both of these because one, we've been talking about watching for a minute, and the other one is a little bit more recent news stuff. So the first thing is Tick Tick Boom. Uh, Tick Tick Boom. It's on Netflix right now. It's the story of the guy that made Rent, um, and I love that movie. It was really well done. It's based off of a rock monologue, I think is the official term. Let's just call it a musical. About the guy that wrote the musical Rent. So Connor, you watched this more recently than I. Um, what did you think?
I thought it was really interesting to learn about that guy because I didn't even know he was dead before this movie. So that was an interesting discovery. Um, a lot of it for me was he is actually the like conductor or the composer of the musical Rent, which is a big old job in a big way because he had to like write a lot of his own dialogue, write all the music, write the lyrics, come up
Mm-hmm.
work with like choreography. So it was really sweet to actually kind of see the processes you have to go through to do that. I have some experience in theater, but it's all just technical, plugging lights in and turning them on.
Yeah,
So like seeing the other side of production, I guess, whatever you want to call it, was like pretty cool for the first time, and like watching him have to deal with that um slowly over time, especially like uh it it was really hard to watch, honestly. I would really say it was very tragic to watch him like have to go through all of that.
yeah. Basically, learning about what does it take for everything to get prior to the stage.
Well, exactly. Well, and like even if like you get everything there at the same time, it's still like you can have it all right, and then they're still like, no,
Yeah.
we
Well,
can't put this on
and
Broadway.
this is a light spoiler for one of the pieces that he works on, that he really focuses and pays his attention to in the movie. He's just outright told like, yeah, it's
Obsesses,
it's
honestly.
not it's not marketable. Like we can't sell this on Broadway. It's too much. It's too much. We got to like bring it
Well, and
down.
he was around during like because at that point there's a very like big thing for a long time where musicals were kind of dead. They weren't
Mm,
really happening. Like there was I think it was Hello Dolly kind of killed them for music for like movies and stuff. And
yeah.
then 9/11 happened and a lot of people actually think that had a big impact on things like musicals just not being as popular or sustainable as they were at one point.
Yeah. So that's something where with
Obviously, you always had like Cats and Phantom, but those are kind of
yeah,
bigger
and
than big.
and the the movie is set in the early 90s. The guy himself would have passed away in, I think it's 96 is when he died and
Heroes
when
Born.
Rent came out. Like it's in a weird era for musicals, and Rent, I want to say, kind of did like what Cats or Chorus Line did a little bit, where it brought that kind of life back into it. Um, but it's interesting to see like how much of
To
the
me,
business side
Cats is
plays a factor.
God.
Yeah,
No, no, good. Um,
cats.
do you really want to talk about Cats?
You you were starting a
It wasn't
tangent
really
on
that
it.
important.
Okay. Yeah.
I think stuff like Cats and Phantom, they're more of an establishment.
Hmm.
It's just a thing you go do. I wouldn't really say they're like great examples of successful music or musicals, and like they've been around for so long. It's
Well, yeah, but before
like
they were
Moulin Rouge, but
that's in the
tacky.
modern day. Think about when they first came out. I mean,
Uh,
it's like saying how Star
Okay,
Wars
boy,
changed
people
stuff
are
up.
really.
The history of music theater is a
I
long
kind of just
sustained
think
one.
they were always bad, but people sure like them.
Yeah, I don't mind them. Yeah,
You don't even
they're
know what's going
weird.
on in Cats. Shut up.
They're
Phantom,
weird.
you can at least understand. Cats, I
They're
don't even
weird.
know. I
So
feel like I'm just like,
we can all agree the movie was bad. So
it
outside
was
of that,
amazing. I had a
stop it,
great time.
stop it. Oh no.
It was so
Um,
good.
so outside
I
of
loved
that,
it.
it touches a little bit on the behind the scenes stuff, and I think that this movie does a good job of getting everybody in on the story of it while also being like a love
And it
letter to
really just is about the process of him writing Rent.
yeah,
So like you don't get to use the excuse of, oh, I don't really like Rent because I don't either, but it really has
didn't even
very
touch
little
it.
to do with it other than
Yeah.
the
And
timeline.
it's not even him writing Rent. It's just him living
Yeah,
his life and writing what he wants is
or
like a
trying.
sci-fi future dystopia musical. Again, this is something where they're like, yeah, that's a little much. We can't.
You gotta actually build that.
Yeah, like your budget's a little out of whack here. Hold on now.
It's
But
kind of
that's
the same issue as a Hellraiser. Guy never had
yeah.
the budget to make the movie he really needed to.
Yeah, so
ID.
that was something that it really kind of dives into some of the behind the scenes. This is definitely a movie for people that like musicals, appreciate musicals, have like gone through the ringer. There's a scene set in a cafe where it's basically just like I want to put it on like the music theater level of like Endgame where just everyone shows up. It's kind of like that. Like there's some people from Hamilton, from Phantom, stuff like that that are just they're just there in the cafe. Does it take you out of the story or not? I can't say. I recognized only a couple
I
people,
I have to
but
imagine most people know.
most people have probably no idea. They just go,
No
"Yeah, that
idea.
sounded nice," and call
I'm
it.
one. I'm
Yeah.
one. For the right. No
Um,
judgments. No judgments.
Gosh, so yeah, there's a whole bunch of people in there, including like
But I
some of
thought
the
it was.
cast of Rent itself. Yeah, it's just a lot. There's a lot
If you
of
are
fun
interested, though, there are a lot of
details.
great videos pointing out like every little thing. If you really want to go through that,
Yeah, I guess honestly,
fun excuse to
um,
rewatch, anyways.
this will be something that like we'll touch on with the next thing we talk about. But just if you happen to know more things, you might get a little bit more enjoyment out of Tick Tick Boom. So that's one
As
thing.
it should.
Um, with the story side of it, um, I I to me it's kind of about the existential dread of like trying to make something that people will appreciate that'll make its impact on the world, yada yada yada. That's kind of how I viewed the the kind of driving force behind the main character, which Andrew Garfield just killed it. I mean, he acts like he's gonna have a heart attack every 2 seconds throughout the entirety of this movie. It feels like. I mean, it really does a good job. And the idea of tick tick boom is that the clock's just ticking throughout all of your life, and eventually it's gonna go. Um, so that was something that I really enjoyed. You were kind of looking at it as being more about the I guess the idea of like the Bohemian dream, yeah.
Well, and it's often like I think the best way I can put it is people with good in their hearts seem to die really easy, and it's like there is a common parallel in a lot of things with like Mozart had a very similar thing where he spent most of his life not that successful. Um, he was pretty old by the time he kind of broke in, and then got sick and died at like what would have been the peak of his career. Got thrown in a mass grave, and
Mm-hmm.
it's that same kind of repeating pattern of it seems like these great people who do all these great things and to make all this impact, and then they're so quickly taken away. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, and obviously it's amazing they were able to pull something like that off. But like, is that almost like predetermined? Like, was that just were they really just here for that?
Like they put all their effort into the craft
Yeah.
and then they're
And
gone
then they, like Heath Ledger, he put all that time into the role, and it
with Dark
literally,
Knight.
unfortunately, yeah,
I guess that's similar to
it's
like
insane.
even like Van Gogh is I think another example. Which with
Great
Van Gogh
example.
that was more internal struggle with like mental health stuff is what he
It's one of
ended up
those
going
like
through.
they struggle to like get out what they need to get out because they
Yeah.
can't just do it. It has to be like, you know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
doesn't want to just do this and throw it on a piece of paper and be like, okay, that's all I needed. Like he wants this to be big, and then as soon as they get it, it's like, wow, that really was it.
Yeah.
And then they're gone.
Yeah. It's fascinating. To me, what my bigger takeaway from it is there's a book I've read called Quarter Life Crisis, and it's the idea that everybody in like their 20s, when you've gotten out of high school slash college, depending on what education you've gone through and the like, there's always this readjustment of, okay, you've gone through like this strict regiment of like, okay, you go here, you do this, this is what you need for the next step, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're left to your own devices to, you know, make what you will of your life. And I felt like with this movie, it kind of touches on that existential dread of like being in your 20s and going, okay, now what? Because I have no idea what I'm going to do now. I think that's something that I really pulled away from it. That might be because I've gone through that really hard until I kind of found out, all right, this is something that I'm vibing with, and I'm just going to keep rolling with it. I think that's something where uh, in the movie, Andrew Garfield's character is really like trying to push the envelope of that stride. Like he found his mojo. Now it's just a matter of trying to get that to actually work. But it seems like everything is spitting in his face the whole way through until finally he gets just enough of a push that he's able to accomplish what he needs.
Well, and I think a big part of it too in that is like I like the idea in his actual I don't know if the monologue is actually called Tick Tick. I think it is called Tick Tick Boom,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
rock
yeah,
monologue he does. He talks about how he turned 30 in the 90s and how in the 90s that may as well be like he's dead.
yeah, yeah.
Like this
Actually,
idea, yeah.
that reminds me. I just watched Inside with Bo Burnham again,
Mm.
and I mean he has that bit about turning I'm turning 30. I said that I was going to be done with this before now, and yay, I'm 30. like like I'm going to
It's
die
like
now.
this like
It's the same
weird like
vibe.
grave marker in life of like I find it
Yeah.
kind of funny honestly because it's like I don't know. I guess I'm just closer to 30 now, so
That's
just
fair.
like well,
I will say when I was a kid, this is a really great personal anecdote. People still get a kick out of it. Um, when I was a kid, I went to one of my aunt's weddings, and she, it was her and her sister. They asked me. I would have been maybe 5 years old or something at this point. They're like, Jordan, what's old to you? I went 30. And they went, okay, don't tell your Aunt Jen because she's turning 30 soon. And I went, oh, I'm sorry. Like, even at 5 years old, it's weird that that's still kind of like the prevailing
yeah,
theory. All those
yep,
years back, people
30.
still laugh at it. It's funny. But yeah, it's weird for two reasons. Because it's like now it's not really the midpoint of most people's lives. It is like the part where I think people start to feel their mortality a little bit, but I
Mm.
wouldn't call it the middle of the road because most people, at least for like the US and Canada, um, that's something where your life expectancy is typically between like 70 to 80 now. Um, you know, fast, backtrack of a couple of decades, it might have been closer to 60, but that's not quite the current course, and people are starting to get all the way to 90s and hundreds. Um, I mean, shoot, Betty White was right around the corner for 100 as an example. Um, that's something where 30 is not the midpoint anymore. So it's interesting that everyone kind of looks at it as like, all right, if you don't do anything good by then, you're done. Like, good luck.
Yeah.
You're not going to get anything done ever again.
Well, and people really push it. That's like a big thing with a lot of, a lot of women always have the idea that if they're not pregnant before 35, they have a really high risk of producing an autistic child. And that is true, but not nearly as drastically as you'd actually think.
Yeah,
So it like
and
it kind of is systemic into other things too.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that find their stride later in life.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, why do
something.
we have the term late bloomers if not, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's something where it's like, what looking at a lot of famous actors, like nobody in high school movies is actually in their teens, so that's immediate
Oh, no.
pressure off.
Yeah.
Um, Going past that, you get into like the 20s range, and people are usually closer to like their 30s or even sometimes their 40s, depending on how they look, how they dress up with it.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Guy who played Miley Cyrus's brother in the Hannah Montana show was like mid to late 30s,
yeah, yeah, and he's
playing
supposed
like
to
a
be playing a
19-year-old.
teenager. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
He
it's those kinds
passed.
of
He
things.
passed. I never thought about it.
Yeah, it's those kinds of things where that's just one aspect of it, and then you get the people that I would say made more out of their older years than they did their younger. The first thing that I think comes to mind is like George Clooney, because I think that's something where everyone's like, no, he's aged like fine wine. He's more handsome now that he's starting to get he's I say started. He's had gray for a while now. Like
Yeah.
it's those kinds of things where there is time, breathe, but to the point of this movie, if you find something and you want to push for it, don't let up, because if you do, you might miss it. Um, so there's a fine balance, I think. But yeah, Tick Tick
Can't
Boom.
do anything after the boom.
Yeah, once you're gone, you're gone. So make the most of your today. So that's Tick Tick Boom. The next thing that we wanted to talk about, and this is really exciting. It was supposed to have come out on the 28th, and supposedly it released a couple days early. That I didn't know. I watched it on the 28th, but that would be Vox Machina, the first 3 episodes of the
Ooh,
D&D based Critical Role streamed show, where it's a bunch of
long
nerdy
time
ass voice
coming.
actors playing Dungeons and Dragons. Um, yeah, this is a long time in the making. Like what, 2, 3 years ago was the Kickstarter that was just absolutely record setting, and then
Sounds
Amazon
about
bought
right,
them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So,
You know,
mhm.
on a quick thing on that, I'm getting so tired of companies buying Kickstarters after they go. It always just yes. But
it's
anyways, getting
it's
into
this
it.
weird thing where it's like,
Ugh,
okay, you know what? You're not going to invest in me? Fine. We're going to prove that it's investable. I feel like that's
yeah.
kind of what it is you're just kind of outsourcing some of the work. Um, that said,
Yeah, well, you haven't gotten screwed over on your fucking backer rewards because that happened. Now have you, Jordan? Now have
sorry, buddy. Too bad I don't look at Kickstarters all that much. Um, so with Vox Machina, uh, without like touching into spoiler territory stuff, which I don't know how much like is or isn't spoiler, because this is stuff that has happened and it's been around for
Assume there will
years.
probably be spoilers if you want to be 100% safe.
Yeah, if you want to
That
be
would be my
super
suggestion.
safe. I would say the spoiler light, if non-spoiler territory, is just the craftsmanship of the show. I think that the design is fantastic. If you take any of the like still moments in just about any part of the show, I think that you can find something that looks pretty damn good.
This
Um,
would be a great coloring book.
yeah. The music, it has some fun like motifs and references to the Critical Role theme. I think it's serviceable. It does its job where it needs to. There's some darker moments or more emotionally heightened moments that the music kicks in pretty well for. Um,
I
sound.
do think we're also kind of in that Harley Quinn season 1 phase of like
Mm,
there's some pretty stock assets in some of these. Like
yeah.
I'll just let's say that straight. Like they don't have the biggest budget in the world, which is kind of confusing considering Amazon got them. But like there are definitely some things that might stick out in that way on the production level.
Yes. So while the design is really cool and it's really
The
good,
the 2D stuff specifically.
I think the motion is where it starts to fall apart a little bit. And
It's a
I
little
do
animatic-y
think,
still.
yeah, I think it does a good job of conveying what it needs to convey. It's just the because you're working with this cast of characters that, these people have been playing forever. I mean, everybody in this voice cast is fantastic. it feels like the animation's kind of holding back the potential of that. And I don't know how much of that is like I don't have immediate familiarity with all of Critical Role. Well, let me put that out there. I have watched, some episodes. I've watched lots of highlights and clips of it. I've tried to keep up as much as I can. I've kind of faltered with campaign 3, but it is something that I'm in the tune of it. And more importantly, like I play D&D on the regular, so I know that kind of stuff. It feels like the the action is good, but when they're just like standing and talking, it's going to be either like just still frame, move, still frame, move, still frame, or it's going to be like just 2 seconds of a really good character moment, and then back to that like still frame, almost mannequins being posed and their mouths are moving. That's kind of how I feel about the animation. Is that bad? No.
It's
Budget's
not
always a
great.
thing. It was made during the pandemic. That's always going to be, something
It's
that
animation.
it's crowdfunded and then bought by Amazon
Yeah.
Animation. Like, yeah,
Well, and
it,
there's the real thing too is like I think a lot of this stuff probably existed before Amazon was around. I don't know
yeah,
that. I'm guessing. So I'm hoping on this will kind of be like Harley Quinn, where it will get better in its second season as far as the
yeah.
tightening of everything and
And
the visuals
shoot,
and
like
stuff.
I come from the I love Star Wars. That's my front focus most of the time. Clone Wars looks like dog shit. The first like proper the Clone Wars movie, it looks like it
Yeah.
was a rendered like not even a PS2 game, but even like just the very edge of PlayStation 1 rendered 3D graphic. Like that's
Textures were so
it
weird,
was it
like
was really weird looking
really
in some of
limited
those, and it
locations.
released in theaters. That's the part that's most terrifying with
Yeah.
the Clone Wars. Meanwhile, like as time went along, you eventually get through the seasons, it gets better and better and
You get to
better.
the show, right?
Yeah, I think that's
And it
something
was actually
where
good.
yeah, I think that's something where like the movie, the first season, it's rough around the edges, but it's still finding its path. And then once you get to like season 2 and 3, it's like, okay, yeah, we made it look clean. Season 4 and 5, hey guys, we figured this out. Let's make this look like a cinematic art piece. And then you get to like 6 and 7, then basically at that point it's just all right, we're gonna throw money at it, especially with season 7 with Disney's backing. And they just went full movie. Like it's fantastic. That's very much what I hope for
Well,
with
and I think
Vox
a main
Machina.
thing
Yeah.
is, and it might be hard to see, but the potential to do really well is there. I'm
Hmm.
literally just seeing there's not the budget.
Yeah.
Like, because if you just add in more frames of what they have, it would be lovely.
Yeah.
But those frames seem to be hard to get a hold of.
Yeah. And again, let's just acknowledge the craftsmanship is there. It's the motions between because the designs are awesome. The fact that
Yeah.
they've got all of these people, they look as unique as they do, um, for being what this project is. Because I will say that this is a weird one. It's a D&D game that some people got together. They live streamed it together over years and years. It amassed a following. It made a Kickstarter, and then the Kickstarter got bought by Amazon. Like, there's so many like layers of how this thing eventually came to be that it's at the end of the day for what this is, it's impressive. Um, I just I want the best for it, and I want more of it. Um, that said, that's kind of on the craftsmanship of it. This is going to be much more in the spoiler territory. So like this is the line. If you don't want any spoilers, cut off here. This is your point. Get out of here. Go watch Vox Machina. Go watch Critical Role. There's hundreds of hours. I haven't even gone that far, so good luck. Um, but the next part I wanted
See
to
you
talk
later,
about,
scrubs.
yeah, the next part I wanted to talk about was the writing. Um, this is fun and weird. It sets the tone pretty much right out the gate that this is um it's uh offbeat zany humor. I wouldn't say it's like cartoonishly crazy, but I would say that it's certainly adult. It has the vibe of a D&D game where it's like there's swearing, there's gore, um
I
things
was happy to
happen.
see. That was one thing I was curious about was were they gonna like tone it down for the show? Like,
No.
what's the age range here? Nope,
Nope. Nope.
nope.
Yeah.
I've always really appreciated about them.
Yeah, that's something that they've really nailed the idea that with a lot of D&D games, I mean, one of the running jokes in any D&D game, much less, with Vox Machina and Critical Role is like the bard goes into a tavern and starts seducing people. And the way we're introduced to Scanlan the Bard uh, in the show is he's literally seducing someone on their bed, half naked, while a bar fight is breaking out on the other side, and they crunch through one of the walls, and they're like, "Hey, can you put your clothes on and like help us with this nonsense?" Like that's straight out of a D&D game. It really is. So that was I mean, literally and metaphorically, it's fantastic, and I think that they've they've done a really good job with balancing all of these characters because it's what I would say is a sizable cast of characters, um, both for
Yeah,
the immediate
especially
party.
for
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, and that's both for the immediate party as well as the supporting cast. So there's the king. You've got like the Briarwoods, stuff like that, where all of these other crew members that are partaking still have a bit of that nuance, that flavor that is honestly really impressive without being bogged down. Like it again, if there's really a lesson to take away with Vox Machina, I think they've really struck some good balances between too much and too little, and that's where you want to be, is in that zone right in the middle. Um, but I thought it was fantastic. No character seemed to get too much spotlight without some interjection or some involvement from the others. Um, People are bouncing off each other very naturally, which makes sense. I mean, these guys have been playing these characters for for years and years.
yeah, this was the stuff they kind of couldn't screw up because it's like you
Yeah,
don't have a very good like you have a
yeah,
huge backlog of reference material to draw from.
yeah, and it just literally from experiencing, like I don't know the last time that you can think of somebody playing a character for this long, for these amounts of hours. Like honestly, even the MCU, where people have been, let's take Robert Downey Jr. He played Iron Man for what, 2008 to 2018, like 10 plus years. And with Iron Man, he's only got so many hours playing as Iron Man. Like with the Critical Role cast, I mean, it's what, like 5 plus hours every Thursday for years. Like so many hours went into just that. It's impressive. So it is something that if if I were to think and hope that there would be a given of the show, the character work would be that given, and I think that that's exceeded my expectations because again, it is something where you have a lot of this bogged down kind of history, and you're trying to really condense it into, okay, what are the core of these characters? We have a 30-minute animated short, you know, version of this. How do we
Yeah, like
translate it?
one episode of Critical Role is like the equivalent of like 3 or 4 of these.
Yeah, yeah, it's hours of content and bouncing back and forth and conversations and figuring out where they're gonna go, what they're gonna do. Um, Shoot, I mean, combat that's another thing. Like combat in an animated like TV show, you can go one round of combat, like done. That's how quick it is
Easily.
translating that game
Yeah.
mechanic, and and they still manage to make it so it doesn't feel so dense that you don't know what's going on. They really paced it well. Um, I guess that also translates into the next thing that I kind of wanted to touch on was this is one of the few times where I've been really impressed with an adaptation, and that kind of carries over to, okay, what does this look like for other D&D adventure type things? What does this look like for video games? I do know that we have the Uncharted movie coming out. I have pretty high
Very
hopes.
excited.
um yeah, that's something that, with just looking at Uncharted, I don't know how many. What, there's 4 or 5 games of Uncharted. I actually haven't played them.
There's at least 4. There may have been 5. I only
Yeah,
played the first 3
yeah.
back in the day.
We have a lot of story about Nathan Drake, and with
I'm really shocked it took so long, but I'm kind of glad it did because it looks amazing.
yeah, and with the Uncharted games, they're narrative focused, they're action set pieces. It really
They're
is.
cinematic games, but like
Yeah,
I think that actually applies to them.
yeah. I mean,
They have
it's
lots of really crazy set pieces and like cool things to do.
yeah, it's the video game version of what you would want from like Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is already like an excellent cinematic thing.
With an even
Well,
bigger middle finger to physics.
number 4 exists. We'll just ignore that. With more fun being that it's a video game. That's what Uncharted is. Is it's Indiana Jones into the video game format, and now we're going back from that video game format into movie. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I am hopeful that because it's so rooted in no, this was a movie thing first. We just kind of like went this full circle that the Uncharted movie will be great.
Yeah, it was like a bunch of game designers were like, well, we want to make a movie, but all we can do is make games.
Mm-hmm.
And then that game got really good.
Yeah,
And they were like,
exactly.
oh,
So that's something that like Uncharted gives me a lot of hope for. With Vox Machina though, that's a whole different beast. I mean, my God,
yeah,
it's
just
the
the sheer amount of like, how far are they going? How long are they going to do this? Like,
mhm. Yeah,
they're definitely in
and
a good meaty part of the campaign, but like, wow, how they got a lot to go, you know?
yeah, and with Vox Machina, the thing that I think is really interesting is you have, I would say, the book problem of okay, there's all of these different facets and characters and things that you can dive into. What are we going to trim to make the story translatable for this form of media? And
And
then
inevitably somebody really liked that part, and it's like, oh,
yeah,
but
yeah, that's always going to
which
happen
is
with
fair.
something like that. But likewise, how much of this is going to be readable to somebody that is less familiar with something like D&D, like maybe they played once and twice in college, years back, haven't touched it since. Are they going to pick up on stuff like that? Is that something that they're still cognizantly aware of? If you have no experience, can you still enjoy the show? That's the stuff that I'm really interested to see. I think yes, but it would be for a very different reason, is what I kind of think. That's
I
my
think you
reaction.
could also maybe if you that some of the things like Jordan, we were kind of talking a little earlier, and Jordan was kind of saying that like some things could possibly come across as like a Deus Ex Machina, not a Vox Machina, a Deus Ex Machina,
Uh,
because they just kind of like, oh, like Vex, it kind of shows her getting her favored enemy. If you play D&D, you know what I'm talking about there.
mhm.
And like some people might be like, oh, well, what's this? Like, where? Oh, they just pulled that out of their butt. But it's like if you have a D&D player say right there, they're like, oh, well, it's like a thing you can kind of do in the game. You
Yeah,
gotta pick your.
like it's something that somebody who's
So I could see
new,
that being a bit of a
this
kerfluffle.
weird part where it's like, okay, we don't exactly explain what favorite enemy is for a ranger. It's just the ability to like know.
They just kind of show it.
Yeah, they show it, they don't touch it, they don't explain it. Same thing goes for like Pike, who's the cleric in the show, uh being able to cast healing magic. Like, oh no, I already cast my healing spell earlier, so I can't save this kid. This kid, like I'm
Yeah,
trying, it's not gonna
people aren't
work.
familiar with spell slots
Yeah,
like
that's
the.
that's something that it's like, is this gonna feel like one of those annoying plot hole things, or is this gonna still translate? I think the verdict's still out on that one. I will say, I don't know if, swearing and gore aside, I don't know if I would be able to show this to like friends and family that haven't played D&D and say, "Hey, this is what D&D be like." Like that's the part where I feel like they might get lost with it. And is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? Like, no, this is for the D&D people. I can't
That's
say.
usually my side of it.
Yeah, I
You
anything that
gotta
I
do
can
some
use to
amount
convert
of.
people, I want to use that. I want more people playing D&D.
Jordan just
That's
wants
my
more
goal.
players.
Not even that. I like I'm running a smaller campaign than I usually do. I just like I feel like D&D
You're
has
pretty weird in the size of campaigns you run, though. You're like one of the only DM I know who wants more.
fair.
Like we pretty hard cut it at 5. That's usually our max.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've got currently is 5. It was
Yeah,
4 for
that's
most
like
of this last year, but prior to that, I've run between 4 and 8 players, leaning towards 6 to 8 players most of the time. When I was in college, like that's how many people I was shuffling around and about, and it's
how long were your
compact into
sessions in college?
from 7 p.m. to midnight, so 5 hour sessions.
Oh, that would
Sometimes they'd
probably
be
be how
shorter
you
or
pulled that
longer,
off. I see.
usually longer. Yeah, I mean, like, 5 hour
Ah,
chunks.
there we
But
go.
8 to 10 weeks.
That makes more sense.
So what, 5, 10,
I honestly think that's pretty good. 8 to 10 weeks.
yeah, it's actually something that I I feel like not a lot of people know about the magic of 8 to 10 weeks. I feel
Yeah,
like that's a
like
thing.
every campaign doesn't need to go for 30 years.
Yeah, yeah.
It's okay
Um,
if it doesn't.
so I think that's something that
It's cool if it does.
I'm in this weird zone of that's where I came from, and with my current game, I'm like, yeah, I'm aiming for a year. I want to have a year long campaign. Let's see how it goes. We're stretching a little bit further than a year, but to be fair, we've had a lot of days off and it had a late start and the like. Um, but that's beside the point. Like it's something that there's a lot to the D&D aspect that I'm worried people aren't going to pick up quite as easily on. I will say, like on the flip side of that, it's cool how again they've struck a good balance of having cameo pop-ups and things in the show that if you've gone through and you've experienced the entirety of Critical Role, or you're at least aware of the broader strokes, you can still laugh at and enjoy. So one of the guards visually is just Matt Mercer, and also I'm assuming played by Matt Mercer. It's Palace Guard 2 in the credits under his name, so I'm assuming it's him. I haven't listened to it enough times, but like they literally just said, "Okay, look, here's his face, slap." And then there's another point where they're at Gilmore Shop, and there's the erotic fiction. That's something that's occurring in a lot of a lot of those visits. But the book in question is a reference to campaign 2 with Jester's like collection of books. Jester being one of the characters
So,
in that second campaign that's live streamed. Those are things where
well,
it's
and
yeah,
I'm curious too if they're setting that up as a connecting thread for later. Like, will that copy of Tusk Love end up being the same one that Jester ever picks up if we ever get that far?
maybe
God only knows.
maybe that
That'd
could
be kind of
happen.
funny.
I would be shocked if with I would say the ravidness, the passionate group that is the critters.
The critters.
I feel like that's something that I would be surprised to see us not just go through everything that they've done. Will we run into this point of we animated the show Vox Machina, and if they end up making it like Vox Machina, the Adventures of the Mighty Nine or something like that for like a because Vox Machina's adventures are going to have to be separate seasons. There's too much to not have it all be
Oh
in
yeah.
one. Like when they go to a new campaign, is it just going to be a split series or is it going to carry that name? Who
Well, and I'm
knows?
curious, like, what about all the guest characters? Like, are they gonna get those people back?
Maybe,
Like,
probably.
there's a ton of guest characters
Yeah,
that like come back, like have recurring roles. Like major characters are played by guests.
yeah, and that's
Like there's
something
like
that
Izzy the Warlock. Yeah, like
yeah, and that's something that I think, given the premise of the show and given that the show is kind of built on voice actors and people that are very close in that industry, I wouldn't be shocked if, if this proves to be successful enough for those first 2 seasons that they carry on to further endeavors with it. I wouldn't be shocked if they end up getting like, okay, so the girl who was the secretary in Daredevil, she played as kind of a pop-up role on occasion
mm,
in Critical Role. Like I wouldn't be shocked if they just bring her in and they're like, okay, so we're gonna record you for some of like season 3 episode 2 and then some of like season 4 episode 5 at the same time, and it just becomes one of those things where they plan that far enough. Eh,
probably wouldn't do that specific.
yeah, I don't know
I don't know. Who would
if
I know?
that's necessary, but I wouldn't be shocked if something like that happens. So yeah, they I think they've handled cameo pop
I
up
do wonder
Easter
what
egg
their
stuff well.
episode Bible is like. Like,
Yeah, I think this first
be
season
interesting
is
to look at.
13 episodes. I think is what it is because it's basically just the Kickstarter. Um,
Yeah,
but
it's where
they
we get probably the maybe. That's what I'm really curious is where is this gonna end up at?
yeah, let's take a lookie. So it is 12 episodes. Oh, they release in 3 episode chunks. Nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's good. Uh,
that's cool. I
I
like
was
that.
worried that this first week, this premiere week, was just going to be those 3 episodes, and it'll be
Yeah,
weekly from that point.
like
No,
Arcane.
good, 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 good. Um, and I'm glad to know that ahead of time because I know with Arcane, I binged the entirety of the show and I didn't realize it released in segments. Um, that I think changed my enjoyment of it. And had I known it released in segments, I think I would have felt a little bit better with the structure of Arcane. Um,
Oh,
I'm
people are so
happy to.
funny with this stuff.
Well, it's just one of those things where it's like I wasn't expecting the
Just
show
binge
to
watch it or
restart
don't.
later.
Oh my god, who cares? Lord.
Well, it's not
Do
even.
you binge it? Do you chunk it? That's just funny. I
No,
love it.
it's
Like
not even that. It's
people talk.
I didn't know that it's going to be 3 acts of the show split by episode. So I was like, oh, okay. The first couple of episodes, we have our initial pilot of like the chaos in Arcane. We're not going to touch into spoilers for Arcane. I was expecting that, and then suddenly everything changes, and I'm like, wait, hold on. I'm like, it's a little bit disorienting if you're binging and you have no idea that it released that way. So that was something that kind of threw me for a loop. So I'm glad to know that that's a similar case with Critical Role, and I'm aware of it ahead of time. Um, we're very off topic with Vox Machina. They did a good job with having things be enjoyable for the sake of them being enjoyable, while also being more enjoyable if you happen to have that prior knowledge. Again, looking at Tusk Love, that's just good. That's just really well done. It doesn't matter if you've acknowledged the show for what it is and have witnessed the entire thing, or if that's something where you're a little bit more on the newcomer side, you can still look at it and go, "What?" I think that's something that they did really well. But again, it is a weird question of like how far can they go with like the gameplay mechanics and making it feel natural to the story that's being told. I think
I
so
hope
far,
they go further.
I think so
Strange
far
Reps. Go watch
they've
it.
done well. Whatever they're doing now, just let's see if they maintain what's happened. I don't
Don't
think
tell
so.
Jordan. Ramp it up. Ramp it. Just go crazy.
Nah. They're gonna have to if they go any
You can't
crazier,
hear
they're
me,
going to
Jordan.
have
I'm
to explain
whispering.
it. They're
I'm
gonna have to
over here
explain it,
whispering.
Connor. They'll have to
No, they
explain
don't.
it. They will.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Those who didn't
Here's
put
the
the effort
thing.
in can just be confused.
All right, here's a counter argument. Do you want the show to continue? You're gonna
Dude,
have
there's
to
no
attract
counter.
more
There's no
people.
logic. There's
There
no
is.
logic to it.
There
To
is.
me.
To
To my
you, maybe.
argument?
No, there's logic to
Yeah,
having
which
more
is not what I'm talking
accessibility.
about. I'm saying there's no logic to my argument. I just don't
Oh,
like this fucking criticism of, oh, I don't really get it, having not watched anything. Like, honestly, I think that's on you, and you should just go watch it or go watch something else then. It was like with the Warcraft movie. Everybody was saying that, and it's like, well, we didn't wait 8 years so it could be a
eh.
movie accessible to you.
Well, the Warcraft movie has its own disaster, and that is like this weird mix of both retconning and like not acknowledgement of
It's not
things
really
that
exclusive
happened
to the
in
movie
lore.
though. Like people still hate the WoW, like the WoW lore, the retcons in WoW lore as is.
Yeah, much less the movie.
Like that's a systemic issue. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like that one was really.
No, WoW's a weird adaptation. I will say it's one of the higher budget ones. Like visually, I think they
Yeah,
did that part
it
good.
was sick.
It made magic look
I mean,
cool, which I think again
yeah,
to this show's point, it makes the magic look cool.
they do really well with the effects for the magic, which
Yeah.
is very important in something like this.
Yeah, especially for like a bard. because like
Yeah,
understanding that a
especially for
bard is magic.
differentiating them.
Yeah, yeah, a bard is not just somebody that like sings music and calls it a day. Like a bard casts spells, so I'm glad how they handled it, so that way it translates well visually. But yeah, I'm excited to see what comes up. Um, will we make Vox Machina a weekly segment? I don't know. I don't know. We're gonna have to see what these next
Well, it
episodes will be.
releases in chunks, so
Yeah,
maybe not.
yeah. Because then
Might just be
we start talking more about the story beats.
might
So
be more of a yeah. I mean, we could always do Vox Machina check-ins. Either way,
yeah, we'll
we'll
just
see where it
acknowledge it.
goes.
Yeah, this was great.
We have 3 episodes now. We'll see what happens.
Three of them. Oh, God, coming from Disney Plus is yeah, we're gonna release one episode a week nonsense.
Yeah.
I I I gotta say I do enjoy this.
That's why I just binge, man. It's like I'm just gonna buy fucking. I'm gonna get a month of Disney Plus and just binge all of Boba Fett. Cause I'm not doing it, homie. I'm gonna
Yeah,
binge that.
but then you have to wait.
Box was easy because I had to. I don't care.
I hate
It'll be
waiting.
there.
I'm
You know how many
impatient.
movies, dude? Do you know how many movies I need to watch? How many shows I need to watch? Like I have things to do. I
Yeah,
got plenty on my plate.
yeah. Well,
I'm still playing through Diablo 2, which I never did before.
I haven't
So
played Diablo 2 in a long time. Wow.
I,
I
cool
God,
game.
I
Cool
think
game. I see what everyone was talking about now with Diablo 3.
yeah. Yep.
But
Well,
either way,
yeah,
not a
well,
Diablo podcast.
yeah, we'll call it there. Connor, where can we check you out at?
As always, same old, same sold. You just want to see a bunch of random videos of my repository of my life. 5 String Connor. Still the narratives and nonsense Pokemon champion. Undefeated.
Where are you
Undisputed.
guys? Where are you guys? You need to take him
Nonsense
down.
narrator. Hit me up. Come on.
I don't
How many
think
weeks is it going to be?
I think if I were to try to jump in on it, it
Ah.
just takes away from the fun of having somebody take him down for me.
George's like, I'm too good. I would just.
It'd be one of those things where I just get min-max,
That'd
yeah,
be
get
really funny.
sweaty and gross. Like, no, I
Oh,
gotta get
homie.
Connor. Like, I can't
You
do it.
wanna
I need
min-max.
someone else to do it for me.
I've forgotten more about it than you even know. That's how
I
I
mean,
feel
that's
about
fair. You've been in the Pokemon scene for a very long time, and
Been
I'm
hitting
like,
there.
yeah, Game Boy Advance. I think I played an SP one. Um, yeah, goodness. So as far as me, if you want to see more of my stuff, there's Gilded for the Win. It'll be linked below, as will 5 String Connor. I stream Halo on Sundays, so that'll be fun.
Jordan's finally playing Halo.
I'm
Everybody
finally
I know.
playing Halo. I've only
I love
played
how you're
Combat
like,
Evolved.
I am too impatient. Hasn't even played Halo. Like, boy, God, if only there was something else you could do.
To be fair,
fill your time a
Halo
little.
was on a console that I disowned entirely.
You're
I
a
never
little
touched
past that
Xbox.
now.
Yeah.
You're a little past that now.
No, now it's on PC, and then Infinite came out. I'm like, all right,
Exactly.
now I'm catching up on everything. But
The PC anniversary makes are very good though. If you are
Yep.
gonna go that direction.
that's what I've got, and I'm playing that with my
Nice.
roommate Marcus, who's
Very good.
intimately aware of the grander story of Halo. So it's like having
Decent.
the Wikipedia right next to me. It's fantastic.
Did you ever watch Red versus Blue? Just to get this onto a random topic
Yeah.
we didn't need to talk about.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Good. I
love
feel
Red
I feel
versus
like you
Blue.
did. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no. We're fighting over
Go watch Red
over
versus
two
Blue.
two bases in the middle of a box canyon. They get the other one. Whoop de fucking do. No, Red versus Blue is
We gotta get the flag,
hilarious.
man.
So yeah, I'm playing Halo now, and then on Wednesdays I stream Kingdom Hearts with my friend John, who has never experienced it. So I get to be the encyclopedia of knowledge for his enjoyment of that game.
What the fuck's going on in that game?
Yeah, we have switched to a controller handoff system when everybody dies. So thankfully we'll make a little bit more progress, and we get to like have the bounce back and forth because the person that's playing is focusing on not dying. And so now we get to hear more of John and John more of me when we swap. It's very nice. Good dynamic going on there. Has not been the case with Halo. I've been spear fronting that. I've also not been using a controller. I'm using mouse and keyboard for it. So that
probably
changes a
works
little
pretty
bit.
well.
Yeah, it works just fine. So that's where you can check us out. And if you like what we said here, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that jazz.
Nah, go away. I don't like you.
Yeah, basically. And following that, we'll see you next week.
Bye,
Ciao.
guys.